Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Packers Unscripted from Packers.com. I am Mike Spofford, joined, as always, by my trusted colleague, Weston Hodkowitz. We're coming to you once again from different locations at Lambeau Field. And
Not
Wes,
so much different this time, Mike. You're right down the hall from me now.
right, but things are so busy and so crazy during training camp that I can't even get in the studio today, let alone both of us being able to get in the studio to
We're going to be
do the
doing this from
show.
the
So
storage closet here soon
yeah,
enough. We're
pretty
going
soon they'll just keep moving us around as we get through our various episodes. But the logistics aside, Packers are in the midst of training camp here and conducted another full padded practice on Tuesday. Since we had recorded our previous show, there'll be another practice not long after we get this show recorded. One thing I wanted to touch on here, Wes, and you wrote about it. There's a story on Packers.com for those who want to check it out. We talked a lot on our last show about the one-on-ones, which kind of get cranked up when the players put the pads on and whatnot. And one guy who's really been standing out in those one-on-one drills is the second-year defensive lineman, Devonte Wyatt. It looks like he is off to a very, very good start, the former first-round pick in his second season.
Yeah, he is, Mike. And it was really interesting talking to him at his locker earlier this week because Pete Doherty was actually there. And, we were talking about the first rep that he took, actually might have been the second one against Josh Myers. And obviously it was a big victory for Wyatt, but he hit him with the spin move. And Pete Doherty asked him that. He's like, is that kind of like one of your big moves? He's like, oh yeah, that's my special move. And we all kind of got a big laugh out of it because then later on in practice, going up against, I believe it's Gene DeLance. I want to make sure I get that right. One of the practice squad holdovers from last year. Then he switched over and he converted to his power and again was able to get the offensive lineman on the ground while keeping his own balance, mind you. And I think what we've seen with Devonte Wyatt in year two is the game has slowed down. I know that's a big cliche, but now he's being able to do this rep after rep after rep. They don't have Dean Lowry anymore. They don't have Jaron Reed. When you look at that base defensive front, and then specifically that nickel front with him and probably Kenny Clark at the 3-tech spots, this is a huge opportunity for the young man. And I think he's really taken advantage of it so far. Now, again, these are just practices. We just put the pads on. But if you were looking for the indicators that Devonte Wyatt is ready for this opportunity, I think you're seeing them because, again, played, I think, just over 200 snaps last year. He only missed one game all regular season, but he was averaging about 10 snaps a game. But when he started to build some momentum at the end of the season, I think that helped his confidence. And now he's coming back looking a lot more, I don't want to say dominant because, again, we got to see some joint practices. We got to see some preseason games. We got to get to the regular season. But I think the Packers have to be feeling really good right now that, okay, we're going to stick with him and TJ Slayton. We're not going to bring in any other veterans to replace Lowry and Reed. I think the signs have been really promising that they made the right choice.
Yeah, I think the question that's still out there with Wyatt to me, the Packers drafted him. You as an interior defensive lineman, you're a first round pick when you show you can rush the passer from that spot. The Packers didn't have any questions. I don't think anybody does with regard to the pass rush is going to come. It's going to be there for Wyatt from from that 3-tech spot or wherever he may line up on the interior. The question at this level is going to be, will he be able to hold up and be the type of disruptive force against the run that he was in college? And things can be a little bit different in the NFL. It's not as easy as just beating your man and getting into the backfield to stop the run, because if that play is not coming at you, it's really easy for a gap or a hole to open up and then boom, suddenly, a run is out the gate. The run defense is played a little bit differently in the NFL in that regard. And I'm not saying that Devonte Wyatt can't do it, but because he had such limited playing time as a rookie, I think we have to see if he's going to be able to be a run stopper down after down, just as I think he's going to be able to consistently put pressure on the quarterback when given those opportunities. The quote that has stood out, it's shown up in our coverage and in coverage elsewhere, when defensive lineman Jerry Montgomery spoke with the media during the spring can't remember exactly if it was OTAs or minicamp or exactly when it was, but he was talking about week 18 against the Lions. Obviously that was a disappointing loss for the Packers, but in the midst of that game, Wyatt got a strip sack of Jared Goff of Detroit, and it was probably the biggest highlight play of his rookie campaign. And Montgomery said when Wyatt came off the field after that play, he commented like, "Hey coach, I think I'm starting to get it." And yes, it was week 18 and everybody was hoping that maybe it would come around a little bit sooner for Wyatt. But he had such a strong finish to the season, not just with that play, but over the last month of the regular season last year, that what we're seeing now at the start of training camp is not necessarily a surprise. It really looks like he is building off of what he did last December.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I kind of was talking about. I asked him about that, the momentum that he kind of derived from the end of that season. And he said there was a little bit, but he's like, I feel much more confident now. And I think that was the totality of his off season. I feel like that was everything that he put in with the reps with Kenny Clark and TJ Slayton during the offseason program. And then the other thing that's interesting too, you mentioned it, like the Packers, the run defense, that's the big thing for them this year. Whatever you want to put it on, whatever the issues were last season, 26th is 26th, and Green Bay knows they need to do better against that. They can't give up 5 yards a clip against the run this season. I feel like getting back to a more traditional nose tackle and TJ Slayton is a big piece to that. For years, you'd see not just Green Bay, but a lot of teams in the NFL, as teams got faster, we saw, safeties playing linebacker. We saw 315-pound nose tackles. We gotten kind of away from the Ryan Pickett sort of generation of 340 pounds and just an absolute handful for interior linemen to deal with. Slayton is a little bit more out of that mold, right? At 340 pounds with as much athleticism that he has, he's going to be a big piece at the one tech, but it's not just one player. It is on Wyatt, it's on Clark, it's on everybody behind them to hold up their end of the bargain. I think the Packers are going to be able to get after the quarterback this season. I feel pretty confident saying that. With Rashawn Gary coming back, Lucas Van Ness is the first-round pick, the athleticism they have on the interior defensive line, and even guys like, Devondre Campbell and Quay Walker behind that. It's about, okay, right out of the gate, Mike, you're going to see New Orleans. You're going to see Atlanta. There's a first-round pick that Detroit drafted. You're going to see a lot of running backs that are either top of the line or considered, that next wave of elite backs, and Green Bay has to be able to stop them.
And you're going to see a quarterback in week 1 who likes to run the ball, not just from a scrambling standpoint, busted plays, but actually designed runs. Justin Fields and the Chicago Bears, he likes to play running back sometimes as quarterback. And that's going to be a challenge right out of the gate in week 1 at Soldier Field as well. So shifting gears to the other side of the ball for a minute, one thing that we will be watching pretty closely here as training camp continues, starting to see some more shuffling on the offensive line with the number 1 unit in terms of where guys are lining up specifically. We've now seen Zach Tom starting to take some snaps at center with the number 1 offensive line in place of Josh Myers, with Yosh Nijman playing right tackle. So that's a combination that the coaches are going to take a look at. And I think the best way to try to understand what's going on here, Larry articulated it very well in our 3 things video after practice on Tuesday. I tried to do the same thing in our Insider Inbox column on Wednesday morning. If you go by what Matt LaFleur has been saying all along, that it's about getting the best 5 on the field, it really looks like right now 3 of those best 5 are David Bakhtiari, Elton Jenkins, and John Runyon. We haven't seen really anything but those guys being in their traditional spots. But then it's between Yosh Nijman, Josh Myers, and Zach Tom. 2 of those 3 guys will round out the best 5. So it's 3 guys competing for 2 spots. Obviously, Myers only plays center, Nijman only plays tackle. Zach Tom can play either one. So in some respects, if you look at it as well, if Zach Tom proves that he's one of the best 5, and I'm not saying that that's been decided yet, but say if it evolves that way and Zach Tom proves that he's one of the best 5, then his position potentially could be determined by who is the other guy who joins the best five, and then Zach Tom just fills in the other spot. That's one way that this could evolve, but it's something that we will watch as training camp continues, as we get into the preseason games and where guys are taking reps, because nothing's for certain yet. But it certainly is starting to take a little bit more shape in terms of exactly what's being looked at.
First off, what Zach Tom is doing is just the darndest thing I think I've ever seen during an NFL training camp. We've
You got that
seen,
right.
Elton Jenkins plays guard and tackle, and we've seen these guys. I don't know if I've ever seen a guy in team period switch between right tackle and center, depending on which package is in and the look that they're getting. I mean,
yeah, and sometimes from period to period, like he doesn't just get to play one spot for like a whole practice. Like he gets 3 snaps at one spot, and then he's taking 3 or 4 snaps at the other. It is pretty amazing, and the not just the physical challenge, but the mental challenge in terms of the plays and executing the responsibilities at 2 different spots within the same practice. That can't be easy.
No, and it takes a smart kid to do that. And obviously, as we've talked about numerous times now, he has put on the weight this offseason to kind of anchor down a little bit. He feels like that's helped him. But because of that, it's also allowed him to have that flexibility to challenge at multiple positions. And, as much as Zach Tom, I'm sure, loves to be versatile and loves to play different spots, I'm guessing his goal at the end of the day, I don't think I'm going too far on a limb saying this, is to be a week 1 starter when the Packers travel to Soldier Field. The interesting aspect of this, though, that I find the most funny is right off the bat, you say David Bakhtiari and Elton Jenkins. That goes without saying. I love the trajectory that Jon Runyan has been on, where, he was in the lineup and he was out of the lineup, and then it was Lucas Patrick, and then it wasn't Lucas Patrick, and it's Runyan. And then the last 2 years, I don't even know if like the gathered media has even talked to the kid that much. He just does his job. He's owned now right guard. He started last year at left guard before they made the flop with, the switch with Yash. And he's just steady as they go. I mean, I feel like Jon Runyan has just been an ultimate premium pick for the Packers coming out of that 20 draft. But because of that, and Zach Tom competing the way he is, it creates some questions there about if he could potentially push for center too. So competition brings out the best in everybody, Mike. You and I have said that since the beginning of time, and the Packers ultimately are going to need all 6 of those guys this year. I doubt there's a scenario in which they all end up healthy from week 1 to week 38 or whatever the season runs now. So the fact of the matter is you have to have options, and Zach Tom gives the Packers a heck of a lot of them.
Yeah, and what you said about Runyan is spot on too. For a guy to come in as a 6th round pick, and he was an all Big Ten tackle at Michigan. And the Packers, saw him as an interior lineman, from the start, and he's learned the guard spot. He's played both sides. He's played on either side of the center, and suddenly now he's kind of entrenched at right guard, and nobody, putting up a serious challenge for him at that spot. When you can find a reliable, like, don't have to worry about it type of player in the 6th round of the draft, and he's actually playing in the NFL at a position that he didn't even play in college, that says something about the scouting evaluation, but also says something about that player, that individual in particular, and how he's gone about the transition to the NFL. It's been pretty impressive on Runyan's part.
Huge value too, right? You go back and you think of Lane Taylor getting 8 years out of Green Bay after being an undrafted free agent at 13.
Guy, yep. Yeah.
And again, very same credentials. He played guard at Oklahoma State, as where, Runyan was playing tackle, but just didn't get enough respect. People didn't think he was athletic enough. They weren't sure if he could do it at this level. And he ends up being a 6'5", 324-pound, like, stalwart on your offensive line for years. And I think those are the ties. Those are the type of guys that you can't say enough about, because you can't always be spending 1st-round picks on interior defense or interior offensive linemen. And Runyan, I think, I know I went off on a tangent with your original point, but I just think it's very funny that that's not even been a conversation. He's just been the guy as much as Elton Jenkins has been the guy at left guard.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, a little bit of sponsor business here, Wes. Sirius XM NFL Radio delivers hard-hitting analysis and up-to-the-minute NFL news that true football fanatics need 24/7, 365. And at Cousin Subs, we have something for everyone, like our Wisconsin cheese curds, mac and cheese, golden fries, and creamy shakes, all paired with your favorite sub or sub in a bowl. Cousin Subs, 50 years of better. I know the 50 years thing was last year, so maybe I should be saying 51 years of better. I'll have to check with you have to check with your contact at Cousins on that for me, Wes.
I will, but I also know enough about sales to never deviate off the script.
Right. I know. It's
so,
like you got read what's in front of you. That's
technically
how it works.
It has been 50 years of better. It's just 50 years and change of better now, right? Like that's the other
50,
aspect.
50 plus years. So, well, another topic I wanted to get to that we had so much with regard to what was going on at practice to get to on our last show that we didn't get to the fact that at Monday's practice this week, Peyton Manning was in attendance, the Hall of Fame quarterback, two-time Super Bowl champion, and now very, very busy with his own media production business. And no, he was not here to talk to Jordan Love about the Netflix quarterback series. That was not part of their discussion. But Jordan Love did reveal to the media some of the stuff that they did talk about, and he was really appreciative of the chance to talk with Peyton Manning one-on-one. And they talked a lot about, just preparation, how to study film, and, how to be that leader and that main communicator on the offense when it comes to your linemen and your receivers and all that. And, Jordan Love soaked up everything he could from that conversation with Peyton Manning. And I think he really appreciated that opportunity.
Yeah. A neat opportunity for a young guy that, you always go back to thinking about like when, Aaron Rodgers got to Green Bay and he talked about the influence that Joe Montana had on him and Steve Young and those guys from the Bay Area. And obviously quarterbacks learn from quarterbacks, right? It's the way it all goes. In our profession too, there's writers we aspired to be and people that we enjoyed reading. So for Love to be able to have that interaction, I thought was really valuable. And as Matt LaFleur said, Peyton coming and saying in words to the entire team, those are the monumental kind of things, because as Jordan talked about, and I think we don't discuss this enough, Peyton Manning had a ton of pressure on him coming into the National Football League. Now, social media 25 years ago isn't what it is today. So he probably didn't have to look at it from every single person giving their opinion at every single second. But the fact of the matter is, he was Archie Manning's son. He was the first overall pick, and he threw, 29 interceptions his first year in the National Football League.
Still has the rookie record for most interceptions in one season.
Yeah, no rookie's really going to get that much of a leash these days.
Exactly. That's the thing. It's kind of like what Brett Favre said, he holds the all-time record for interceptions for a career. It's like, well, you have to be doing something right if you're going to be allowed to throw that many interceptions. And Peyton Manning was allowed to throw that many as a rookie because the Colts knew what they had, and certainly it eventually came around for him.
And the Colts weren't very good that year either, right? And next thing you know, they turn it around and they become a perennial playoff team and eventually a Super Bowl champion. But to be able to level with a guy like Jordan Love like that, I think that's important, because it reminds you that whatever the result is today doesn't mean that predestines to you to what tomorrow is going to be, good or bad, right? There's going to be ebbs and flows to this game. And it's the number one thing I talked about all offseason when we would do these podcasts, when we do Unscripted, when we talk to Larry, is that Jordan Love, that's the biggest transition for me. That's the biggest hurdle I think he needs to climb, is just that you're going to play a game on Sunday. You're going to break it down, unless you start winning a bunch of games that you get victory Mondays, but you're going to have to break it down on Monday, and you have to start getting ready for the new game plan on Wednesday. That's how the life of an NFL quarterback goes. You have to have that short memory, and you have to keep building towards what's coming next. And I feel like that is the personification of what Peyton Manning did in his career. That's how you last as long as he did in the league, in addition to just having a lot of God-given talent and ability. So I think it's exciting right now. I think it's exciting for the Green Bay Packers when you get that type of player in here. I mean, all our eyes immediately from the sidelines started going over there. As soon as you notice Peyton Manning there, it is something that's going to catch you. And I'm just really happy for Peyton Manning, too, that he got to chat with Red Batty, because when you talk about legendary people in the National Football League, Peyton Manning's up there. He's pretty good, Hall of Famer. But Red Batty, Gordon, just a cut above.
Yeah. Well, the other thing I really enjoyed was hearing Matt LaFleur at the podium the other day reminiscing about a very bad memory early in his coaching career when he had just broken into the league with the Houston Texans, and they basically blew a 17-point lead to Peyton Manning in the last 5 minutes of the game. And it's funny, Wes, because you know me and my curiosity and how, so I went and looked up the game. And okay, so how did Peyton Manning pull off this comeback? Well, one, it wasn't all Peyton Manning, but this is how it unfolded. And you have to picture, okay, if you're Matt LaFleur, this is like his 4th or 5th game as an NFL assistant coach on the bottom of the totem pole, quality control level with the Houston Texans. He's just gotten into the league in 2008, and he's a month into his career as an NFL coach. And he's watching from the press box, and his team has a 27-10 lead with about 5 minutes to go. Huge underdogs, the Texans against the Colts. And Peyton Manning drives the Colts down for a touchdown. It's 27-17. Then the Texans fumble the ball. It gets scooped up and run back 70 yards for a touchdown. So it's 27-24. And then the Texans fumble the ball again. The Colts recover. Peyton Manning drives them down and gets the touchdown to take the lead with a little bit under 2 minutes left. And then the Texans get one more shot and the quarterback throws an interception. So that's actually how that game unfolded. So you talk about a game that is going to make an impression on a young coach who's just broken into the league. He's up against watching a Hall of Fame quarterback on the other side, seeing how you absolutely have to play and execute and do things right for 60 minutes in order to win games in this league, and how huge a factor turnovers can be. I mean, it was all laid out for Matt LaFleur right there in that game against Peyton Manning and the Colts. And it was fun to hear him talk about that bad memory, but then also look up the details of exactly what unfolded, because there's no question that game made a big impression on Matt LaFleur and how it shaped him as a head coach.
Yeah, and people wonder why Matt always talks about turnover margin and differential.
Exactly. Just look at that one. First month of the 2008 season, 27-10 with 5 minutes to go. Look what happened. So
it'll turn a whatever it is, a 17-point lead into a deficit real quick when you start fumbling balls for touchdowns. But hey, listen, I mean, it's cool. It is the neat thing about training camp. I remember, if I can just say one last story here before we cut out, the first time I saw John Madden at one of our training camps. I was still at the Press Gazette at the time. John was a little bit older, but he was here. I can't remember what the project was for, but you start to see some of these people that have had such an impact on the game of football and what the sport that we enjoy today. And there's no like Goodyear blimp saying, "Hey, welcome Peyton Manning." They just kind of show up from time to time during camp, right?
Yep. Here they are.
And to me, that's always the most fun. And a very cool memory. And I think something that Jordan Love, as he ventures off, as we talk about, into this first year as a quarterback, starting quarterback in the National Football League. One of those like tiny moments that kind of builds up to something special.
Yeah, absolutely. And Manning did, he addressed the entire team actually after practice on Monday, shared some words of wisdom and everything there. I know we do have to get going, but I want to mention one other thing to all of our loyal listeners, readers out there. If you have not checked out Wes's story on Derrick Coleman, the deaf/hard of hearing Super Bowl champion from the Seattle Seahawks, who is now a member of the Packers front office in the player engagement area. You need to read that story. It's really, really well done. It's a great story about a great individual. I'll give you just a minute here, Wes, to talk about how that story came together and the impression that it made on you as the writer.
Well, it was fun, Mike, because I think you and I, we both remember Derrick Coleman and the Duracell commercial and everything he was a part of with the Seattle Seahawks. Good, bad, and in between, right? I mean, there was a touchdown in 2014 in that opener at, out in Seattle that I'll never quite forget either. But that being said, from a football perspective and what he means to this community, I feel like it was fun being a part of that. So basically myself, Tyler Gajewski, and Nick McGahan from our video department all went down to Verona Area High School. Beautiful high school, by the way, Michael, down in your eastern part of the woods.
Southwestern, actually, but
Southwestern, sorry.
Near Madison. Verona's very close to Madison, for those who don't know.
Terrible at geography. It was my worst subject. Sorry. But that being said, I'm really getting off to a great start on this promo, aren't I? But the fact is that being able to be with him and the American Sign Language students from Verona, the Wisconsin School from the Deaf was also there. Their faculty had came to the event, and listening to Derrick's message. And it's one thing to read stories. It's one thing to watch amazing video packages that have been put together over the years. But when you actually see the way he interacts with kids, it was very special. And having a chance to talk with Gray Rugemer about him, and Matt LaFleur made a comment, and then certainly even some of the lives he's touched away from football, that was the coolest part of the experience to me, because you see what a certain amount of celebrity can do for the good of the world if used and channeled properly. And I feel like Derrick Coleman has really done that. Now, as you mentioned, the assistant to Gray Rugemer in the player engagement area, it's the perfect role for Derrick. He has had such an incredible lived experience, and his ability to kind of relay and tell players what it's like to go through things, I think is really important, because in a lot of ways he had to study this book over and over and over again to make it as long as he did in the National Football League. And as Aaron Jones told me during the offseason when I talked to him about it, he feels like he could be a real special piece to what this team is building now moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And I encourage everyone to check out that story. It was posted on Packers.com Wednesday. Shouldn't be too hard to find, and I think you'll really enjoy it. So with that, we will call it a wrap on this edition of Packers Unscripted. Be sure to follow all of our coverage of training camp. We've got it all for you on Packers.com. For Wes, I am Mike. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. We will see you next time.